fourth grade. Welcome to another Read Aloud with Miss French. As you can tell, we left off in chapter 3, Under Ember. So I thought we should get our headlamps on and dive into the book. Yeah? Yeah? Get it? Okay. Anyways, friends, we're going to dive into, hopefully we finished chapter 3 today. But if you guys remember last time, we read about Doon. He just got to the door of the generator. He snuck off during lunchtime. He is with his, if you remember the name of the character. Whoop, I almost said it. He's with a character who's like his mentor for the day. She's kind of showing him like the ropes of the job. And she went off to leave and hang out with her friends for lunch. And she told him to stay put. And what did he do immediately? Just like most of us kids, once the teacher leaves the classroom, he took off and he went to go find the generator. We are at the point where he just slips into the door to see the generator, and we are going to find out what happens next in chapter 3, Under Ember. I'm super excited to also read your comments from our last video on what your predictions are for what he's going to find in the generator, and also to kind of giggle at what our predictions were and what or if you guys want to create your own version of what you think that dance probably looked like and what she was doing in front of the whole community, definitely send a video, have your parents like email it to me or something, and maybe I can share it with the rest of the class if you or your parents would like. But I personally would just love to see you guys being silly and creating the dances of what you think is in the book. All right, so let's jump into page 47, chapter 3. We'll start at the top. Quite soon, a stout woman carrying a lunch sack pushed open the door and walked away. She didn't notice him. Before the door could close again, Doon slipped inside. Such a horrendous noise met him that he staggered backward a few steps. It was an ear-splitting, growling, grinding, screaming noise. Clapped his hands over his ears and stepped forward. You can assume that the generator is what? Super loud. But did the author say, yeah, the generator was really loud? No, they used amazing descriptive words like growling and grinding and screaming, struck with a horse, and then they use an onomatopoeia, which is a sound. Rickety rackety and chugga chugga chugga. I love those. Was a gigantic black machine, 2 stories high. It was vibrating so hard it looked as if it might explode any second. So when they said 2 stories high, guys, think of how tall our building is. Especially if you're looking at it from the playground, it's about 2 stories. Noticed him come in. He tapped one of them on the shoulder, and the person jumped and whirled around. He was an old man, Doon saw, with a deeply lined brown face. I want to learn about the generator, Doon screamed, but he might as well have saved his breath. No one could hear in the uproar. The old man glared at him, made a shooing motion with his hand, and turned back to work. Doon stood and watched for a while. Beside the huge machine on to reach the high parts. All over the room, greasy-looking cans and tools littered the floor. Against the walls stood big bins holding every kind of bolt and screw and gear and lever and rod and tube, all of them black with age and jumbled together. The workers scurried between the bins and the generator or simply stood and watched the thing shake. After a few minutes, Doon left. He was horrible. It was one of his favorite things to do. He could take apart any old watch and put it back together again exactly as it had been. He understood how the faucets in the sink worked. He fixed the toilet many times. He made a wheel cart out of the parts of an old armchair. He even had a hazy idea of what was going on in the refrigerator. He was proud of his mechanical talent. There was only what was the power that ran through the wires and into the light bulbs? Where did it come from? He had thought that he could just get a look at the generator, or if he could just get a look at the generator, he would have had a clue, or had the clue that he needed. From there, he could begin to work on the solution that would keep the lights of Ember burning. But one glimpse of the generator showed him how foolish he was. Workings he could understand. A wheel turning, a spark being struck, some wires that led from one point to another. But this monstrous, roaring thing, he wondered if anyone understood how it worked at all. It looked as if all they were doing was trying to keep it from flying apart. As it turned out, he was right. When the day was over and he was upstairs taking off his boots and slicker, he saw the old man from the generator room and went to talk to him. "Can you explain to me about the generator?" he asked. "Can you tell me how it works?" The old man sighed. "All I know is the river makes it go." "But how?" The man shrugged. "Who knows? Our job is just to keep it from breaking down. If a part breaks, we got to put on a new one. If a part freezes up, we got to oil it." Black grease. "I've been working on the generator for 20 years. It's always managed to chug along, but this year, I don't know. The thing seems to break down every couple minutes." He cracked a weary smile. "Of course. I hear we might run out of light bulbs before that. And then it wouldn't matter if the generator works or not." Running out of light bulbs? Running out of power? That's what Doon was thinking about when he stopped outside the gathering hall on his way home and saw Lena on the roof. She looked so carefree and happy up there. He didn't know why she was on the roof, but he wasn't surprised. It was the kind of thing she did, turning up in unexpected places, and now that she was a messenger, she could go just about anywhere. But how could she be so light-hearted when everything was falling apart? He headed for home. In Greengate Square, the small items shop, which sold things like nails, pins, tacks, clips, springs, jar lids, doorknobs, bits of wire, shards of glass, chunks of wood, and other small things that might be useful in a small way. The small items shop had overflowed somewhat into their apartment above. In their front room, where other people might have a tabletop or a few attractive squashes or tomatoes on a shelf, they had buckets and boxes and baskets full of spare items for the shop. Things Doon's father had collected but not yet organized for selling. Often these items spilled over onto the floor. It was easy to trip over things in this apartment, and not a good idea to go barefoot. Today, Doon didn't shop before going upstairs. He wasn't in the mood for conversation. He removed 2 buckets of stuff from the couch. It looked like mostly shoe heels, and he flopped down on the cushions. He'd been stupid to think that he could understand the generator just by looking at it. when other people had been working on it their entire lives. He had to admit, he'd always thought he was smarter than other people. He'd been sure he could learn about that, so he wanted to be the one to do it. He had imagined many times a ceremony in Harkin Square organized to thank him for saving Ember, with an entire population in attendance and his father beaming from the front row. All Doon's life his father had been saying to him, "You're a good boy and a smart boy. You'll do grand things some day. I know you will." But Doon hadn't done much that was grand so far. Important, like finding the secret of electricity, and, as his father watched, be rewarded for his achievement. The size of the reward didn't matter. A small certificate would do, or maybe a badge to sew onto his jacket. Now he was stuck in the muck of the pipeworks, patching up pipes that would leak and break again in a matter of days. It was even more useless and boring. He sat up, grabbed a shoe heel out of the bucket at his feet, and hurled it with all his might. So it arrived at the front door just as the door opened. Doon heard a hard thwack. Thwack would be an onomatopoeia. It's a sound. Put in word form. And a loud ouch at the same moment. Then he saw the long way. "Oh, I hit you, Father. I'm sorry." Doon's father rubbed the side of his head. He was a tall man, bald as a peeled potato, with a high forehead and a long chin. He had kind, slightly puzzled gray eyes. "Got me right in the ear," he said. "What was that?" "I got angry for a second," said Doon. "I threw one of those old heels." Hops off a chair and sat down. "Does it have to do with your first day at work, son?" "Yes," said Doon. Father nodded. Why don't you tell me about it?" he said. Doon told him. When he was finished, his father ran a hand across his bald head as if smoothing down the hair that wasn't there. He sighed. "Well," he said, "it sounds unpleasant, I have to admit, about the generator especially. That's bad news. But the pipeworks is your assignment. What you get. What you do with what you get, though. That's the point. Wouldn't you say?" He looked at Doon and smiled, a bit sadly. Kind of like what we've been talking in class, right? You can't control the things around you, but you can control how you decide to act around it. Kind of the lesson that Doon's learning right now. So, Doon replies with, "I guess so," Doon said. "But what can I do?" "I don't know," said his father. "You'll think of something." Attention to everything. Notice what no one else notices. Then you'll know what no one else knows. And that's always useful. This guy's a smart guy. He took off his coat and hung it from a peg on the wall. "How's the worm?" he asked. "I hadn't looked at it yet," said Doon. He went into his room and came out with a small wooden box. His father both bent over to look inside. A couple of limp cabbage leaves lay on the bottom of the box. On one of the leaves was a worm about an inch long. A few days before school ended, Doon had found the worm on the underside of a cabbage leaf he was slicing up for dinner. It was a pale, soft green, velvety, smooth all over, with tiny, stubby legs. Doon had always been fascinated by bugs. Titled Crawling and Flying Things. Wow, what a scientist. Each page of the book was divided lengthwise down the center. On the left, he drew his pictures with a pencil sharpened to a needle-like point, moth wings with their branches patterned of vines, spider hairs, and tiny feet like claws, beetles with their feelers and their glossy armor. On the right, he wrote what he observed about each creature. He noted what it ate, where it slept, where it laid its eggs, and if he knew how long it lived. This was different with fast-moving creatures like moths and spiders. To learn anything about them, he had to watch what glimpses he could. If he had put them in a box, they would scramble around for a few days and then die. This worm, though, was different. It seemed perfectly happy to live in the box Doon had made for it. So far, it did only 3 things. These are my favorite 3 things. Eat, sleep. It looked like sleeping. Doon couldn't tell if the worm had closed its eyes or even if it had opened them. And expel tiny black... Oh, this is my 3rd thing. That was it. So I guess I like the first 2. And this is your teacher embarrassed. All right. I've had it for 5 days now, said Doon. It's twice as big as it was when I got it. It's eaten 2 square inches of cabbage leaf. You writing all this down? Doon nodded. Maybe, said his father, you'll find something interesting, new, bugs, in the pipeworks. Maybe, said Doon. But to himself he said, no, that's not enough. I can't be bugs and pretending there's no emergency. I have to find something important down there. Something that's going to help. I have to. I just have to. And that is the end of chapter 3 under Ember. Chapter 4, something lost, nothing found. And friends, we're going to stop right there. Chapter 4.